Welcome to City Church's On Demand Messages. My name is Josh, and we're so glad you're tuning in whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. In fact, if it's your first time, we'd love to connect with you. You can text NEW to the number on the screen right now. We've got a free gift for you. Also, if you need prayer, we would love to pray with you. We believe that prayer is not our last resort, but it is our first response to what is going on in our lives and the lives of those around us. And so we'd love to join in with you. And so you can text next to the number on the screen. Also, if you'd like to invest financially into the mission of City Church to be a Jesus movement that awakens the soul in the city, you can text next as well to the number on the screen. We believe every Sunday morning when we gather in person and online, and we open up God's Word, that He has something special and specific for every one of us. And so as we lean into this week's message that you're about to watch, we pray that God opens up your heart to whatever He has for you, and we hope that you are encouraged by today's message. Again, if we can do anything for you, please let us know. Man, I'm excited, and so I'm just going to jump right into this thing. Man, it's going to be exciting. My name's Josh, and I'm one of the pastors here, and just so thankful that you're here with us. However you got here, however you found out about us, it's awesome. We're just glad you're in the room right now. I got a question for you, though. Do you ever wish you could just have a do-over? A couple of us? Just a few, huh? A couple of people need do-overs. I believe in the golfing world it's called a mulligan, but it's funny. I think all of us could probably look back at some moment in life, or maybe a lot of moments in life, or maybe the last few years of our lives, and say, I just wish I could get a do-over. But life's not that generous sometimes. Now, to kids, we are. So last week we were playing, of all things, badminton with some friends. Badminton is it's a racket, and you get this thing called a birdie. It's not a real bird, don't worry. You don't hit the bird, but never mind. All right, so moving on. Moving on. So we're playing badminton. It's a bunch of us. It's adults, and it's my 6-year-old son. And so he gets up to serve, and he throws the birdie up, and whiff, swing and a miss. Now, me being like the just father that I want to be like, that was your one shot. Get to the back, buddy. Let's go over. But everybody else, all the adults were like, oh, give him another chance. And so he throws up again and goes whiff and miss. I'm like, all right, that's it. And they're like, no, give him another chance, second chance, a third chance. So he does it. This time, now he's becoming violent, right? Like, it's like my wife is about to get knocked out. I mean, people are running for their lives and screaming. Little babies and children are like screaming. It's just this massive event. I mean, he's getting violent with this thing. I mean, you ever felt like that? Like you had this chance and you swung and you're thinking it's going to go and it's right there. And then you're like, all right, I get another chance, and you swing and, it's right there. It's really easy to give second chances to kids. But for some reason, life's not that generous with adults, are they? I mean, people, not that generous. I mean, people that we would call friends and family, not that generous to give second chances. People that would say that they are for us and on our side, not that easy to give us a second chance when we mess up. I mean, everybody loves you until you mess up, and then the second chance really doesn't happen. And so we spend our lives, if we're just honest, never swinging again because we got burned and we got hurt. And so we put the racket down and move on with life. Here's the beautiful thing about Easter. I think Easter, and believe with all my heart, that Easter is about a God of do-overs and a God of second chances and a God of third chances. Easter is a story about a chance and a second and a third and, God forbid, a fourth and a fifth. I mean, like, we serve a God who's a God of second chances. He's a God of do-overs. He's a God of mulligans, however you want to call it. Like, he's a God that says, if you come to me, you're home. I think sometimes we forget that, though. Jesus knew that we forget that. In fact, at one point, he's sitting with these religious leaders. Do you know the people that think they're better than everybody else? You might be sitting by one of those right now. Don't nudge them. That's going to be really awkward for the Easter egg hunt later on today, okay? But I mean, just thought that they were holier, better than everybody else. And so Jesus is talking to them, and they actually make this. They say, this Jesus hangs out with sinners. He hangs out with those that we're not given a second chance, or we gave him a second chance, and then they messed it up, and so no third chance. This Jesus hangs out with them, and so Jesus says, let me tell you 3 stories in a trilogy form. The first one he tells is about a lost sheep. And this lost sheep, he says that this shepherd had 100 sheep, and one ran away, and he left the 99 to go after the one. It's just reckless, right? That does not seem like a good ROI, return on investment. And he just goes and he goes after the one. And Jesus, and as he's saying this, people are probably like, this is the oddest story ever. Why would you go after the one and leave the 99 helpless? And this is what Jesus says. And in Luke 15, this is where we're going to be all morning. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. So he called neighbors, friends, and said, let's throw a party. We found the sheep, the dumb sheep. The dumb sheep. What? Jesus, okay, you're not getting it. Maybe these rich and people that think they're better about us, maybe they'll understand money. So he tells them a story about a lost coin. And he says that this woman had 10 coins and she lost a coin. And so she flips over her couch. She flips over her table, true Hulk style, right? Like just raging in her house, like, where's my coin? You know, like just flipping out, going crazy. And she finds her coin. And this is what Jesus says. And when she found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost. Just so I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Whew. Jesus keeps talking about, hey, there's this, God goes after the one. He goes after the one. And so it's like they didn't get it. So he's, okay, let me finish out this trilogy. Luke chapter 15, verse 11. He says this, let's not talk about sheep. Let's not talk about money. Let's talk about people. There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. So just right away, so you had these 2 sons. So these 2 sons, when the father died, they would get his property. They would get his inheritance. And so what this guy does, he basically slaps his dad in the face and says, I just wish you would die. Like, just go ahead and die. Because what you have is more valuable than who you are. Can you imagine being the dad in that moment? All I care about is your wealth, nothing more. So just go ahead. So the dad gives him his wealth. And so the story continues to go on. The boy takes the money and runs off to a far-off land and loses it all, spends it all on frivolous things, and he loses it to the point where he's like, I've got to make money somehow. He's thinking about, how can I even get back home? I don't know. So he begins to work in a pigsty and begins to just think, I could even eat the slop from the pigs. I mean, he's down and out. He's got nothing left, but can't go home. And so all of a sudden, in verse 17, here's what he says. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against you and against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as your hired servant. So he makes this speech like, I'm going to go home, but I gotta grovel. Like, there's no way I'll be able to be a son again. There's no way I'll be a part of the family, but at least I could be a servant. At least I could get food. At least I could get taken care of as a slave or a servant. And so verse 20, he comes home. We don't know how long it took, and he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, felt compassion, not contempt, compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. I mean, imagine this moment. The father's looking out. He sees his son in a distance, and he begins to run. Now you're like, oh, he just ran. But back in that time, the patriarch of the family didn't run. For him to show his legs and to reveal his legs was actually a slap in the face. It was disgrace and shameful for him in that community, in that village. And so this man's in a robe, right? And so in order to run, he's got to pick up his robe. And so he picks up his robe. He shows the world his calf muscles and his legs and all that stuff. They see it all. And he's just sprinting and chasing after his son. He just goes. And as they're thinking about it, it's like, there's no way this is even possible. Why would a dad who got slapped in the face do this? Why would he run after him? Why would he hug him? Why would he kiss him? And then he continues to go on. He runs in public. He lifts his robe and reveals his legs. That would be a disgrace to him. But the father says, I don't care what the village sees. I'm going after my boy. Verse 21, and the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. And the father stops him. You see, he was about to say, I will be your servant. But the father stops him dead in his tracks before he could even finish his speech. And said to his servant, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his hand. So that ring was important. That ring had a family insignia on it. So that was the ring that you would stamp a letter with. So he says, you're not just getting a robe. You're getting the ring that has our family crest on it. I'm not bringing you home as a servant. I'm bringing you home as a son. He continues to go on, and he says and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." And they begin to celebrate. This is so interesting. This is the first time that Jesus says, okay, you really need to get what I'm trying to get at. He doesn't just say the son was lost and found. He says that he was dead and he's alive again. Jesus said this story isn't about a lost son. It's a matter of life and death. I mean, can you imagine standing in front of your father, spitting in his face, taking what he has, and then showing back up and expecting even a hi or a hello, but to get a father sprinting across through a village, doesn't care about what anybody thinks. All he cares about is welcoming his son home. It's pretty remarkable. Check this out.
Please leave a message after the tone.
Hey, Dad. It's me. Man, I know it's been a long time since we talked. I was kind of hoping you'd answer, but I understand that you probably don't want to talk to me. I've just gone so far, and the things I've done, I just regret it, you know? And I know how bad I've hurt you and let you down, but Dad, I miss you. I miss how we drive around and just talk about life. And I just want to come home. But I know you've probably written me off. I can't blame you, actually. Here's the thing. It's kind of a shot in the dark, but I'm coming through town soon, and I'd really just like to see you. I know I can't just show up at the front door like I used to, but if you want to see me, just hang a small sheet out on the porch. If the sheet isn't there when I drive by, I'll keep going, and I'll try not to bother you anymore. I love you, Dad.
Got to put yourself in those shoes, right? In that embrace as the dad, what would you have done? I mean, think about it. You probably, if I'm just being honest, I probably said, "Hey, glad you're home, but we got to talk about some stuff." "Hey, glad you're home, but there's going to be some consequences. Like, glad you're home, but you're grounded." I don't know what that would be, but just welcomes them back with open arms. It just gives, I think that video just touches on, gives us a glimpse of what Jesus is trying to get us to understand. But there's something that the video doesn't tell us that was going on in that time as Jesus was telling us this story. You see, there was this ceremony called Kezazah. And this ceremony was a ceremony for any son, any daughter who would take their father's inheritance and they would run and squander and lose it and try to come back to the village. You see, we have this like picture of this long windy road and like these beautiful fields and the father's coming back. But this is told in a village setting, in a community setting. And so there was this gate that this son would come up to. And when he was greeted, he would be greeted by the elders of the village and the mom. You see, the dad couldn't be at this meeting because the dad's decision would trump everything else. So the dad would have to stay in the house. And the elders would come and they would have this clay pot in their hands. And the boy would make his case to the elders of why he should be let back into the family and let back into the community. And the elders would talk and discuss, and the mom would plead the boy's case as any good mom would do. And at that point, the elders more than likely would take this clay pot, throw it at the feet of the boy, and say, Kezazah, which means cut off. And that boy, that son, would be cut off from the family and the village for the rest of eternity, for the rest of his life. So get this. This makes the story even better and even richer in what Jesus is trying to tell us. Because now we have this story of the son who shows up at the village gates, and the dad is in the home, and he sees his son, and he says, I've got to beat Kezazah. I've got to beat him getting cut off. I've got to beat the elders. And so he lifts up his robe, he shows his legs, and he sprints across town to meet his son at the gates to embrace him. In that moment, the father trumped Kezazah. He trumped the cut off. This dad and his boy, they walked right through the village and past the cutting off and past the people who would judge them. They walked past all of them and they walked straight into a party, straight into a celebration. So inevitably, the religious leaders are thinking, yeah, but who gets the Kezazah? Who gets cut off? You see, they were clueless. They didn't know what this story was telling or what this story was about. But 2 months later, Jesus would find himself, or Jesus would put himself on a cross. And in that moment, Jesus would take on the sins of all of humanity. The entire world, your sins, my sins, would take all of that on himself on the cross, to die on the cross. And because God is a holy God and a just God, he cannot be with sin. And so in that moment, he turns his eyes, he turns his face from Jesus, and Jesus says this, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? In that moment, Jesus took all of the sins of the world on his shoulders. Every clay pot, God took the clay pot and he threw it at his feet. And all the sin, and he cut Jesus off because he took all of the sin. And every single bit of that clay pot was yours and was mine. It was the things that you would never dare share with anyone in this room. The things that you've been hiding, the things that you've been holding on to. It was the things that you've been trying to be prideful and strong about, but you're so weak and you're breaking inside because you just can't hold on any longer. It's the things that you were just terrified to tell your spouse or your friend or maybe even your enemy because you're afraid of what they would think. It's the things that you've been doing for years or the things that you've been doing for weeks. Every single bit thrown at the feet of Jesus, on his shoulders, so that we could get a welcome home from God. I mean, Isaiah says this, all we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way. And the Lord laid up on him, Jesus, the iniquity of us all. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. God smashed the pot of all our sins at the foot of the cross. And if it stops there, man, it's a really depressing story. 3 days later, an angel would tell a woman named Mary these words. Matthew, he is not here, for he has risen as he said. The cross, death, darkness, hell, defeated. And the tomb that the dead body of Jesus lay was empty, and the stone that was rolled away meant that there was no more barrier. The path was clear for you and I to come home. Jesus got Kezeza. He was cut off for a moment, and we got grace. This is the story of Easter. That the prodigal, that the lost, that ones that have been running for years or months or for their entire life would be able to turn around and come to God repentant and sorrowful, and they would not get, how dare you? They would not get, you've had too many chances. They would get a welcome home. Easter is when we come home, which tells us this. Because of Jesus, God's welcome home is always available. Which means that if you thought you missed it, if you thought it was a couple months ago and like you were gearing up, like this is it, I'm gonna give my life to him, this is it, I'm gonna turn around, and you got caught back in sin, you're like, I missed my chance, I missed my moment, it's always available. The door is always open, which tells us this, and it's not only available, but his welcome home is for all, is always for all. It doesn't matter where you've come from, it doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter how much sin that you're holding on to. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or your education level or the amount of money in your bank account. It doesn't matter what anybody's ever said about you. His welcome home is for all people. All of that on one man to take it all so that we could all have a welcome home. It's available now. It's for all. God's welcome home is always better. So I don't know what you've been searching for, like the prodigal son that just went out and was trying to find like something. Maybe this will be better. Maybe this relationship will be better. Maybe this substance will be better. Maybe this amount of money will be better. Maybe this kid, maybe this sport. I don't know what it was for you. You said, maybe this will be better. I want to tell you right now that the son in this story experienced what so many of us have in this room. That no matter what, and I could give you a list of 20 things that at some point in my life I thought that were better. And I'll just be honest, a couple of weeks ago, drifted and thought something was better, and it wasn't. God's welcome home is always better. It's always better. It's here now. It's for all. And it's always, always better.